Hey, what's up, guys? So in this video, I want to talk to you guys about what my thoughts are on the current state of the economy, and this video is specific to the United States economy. So the first thing I'll start with is everything that we're going to address and discuss, all the points I'm going to bring up are my observation and the result of my researching and my basic familiarity with certain things and how they work in life and in finance, economics, etc. So I mention that because what I'm trying to say is we're currently at a time right now where the economy is basically an illusion. Okay? It's a facade. It's not real as it presents. And what I mean by that is since 2008, our economy has been propped up artificially by multiple measures. One of them, as an example, is bank bailouts, also referred to as quantitative easing. There were multiple rounds of this where there was an injection of capital of $80 billion approximately per month that was basically printed out of thin air, given to the banks with the intention that they were going to then lend the money back into the economy and stimulate things out of the recession that we were in at the time. That didn't happen. The banks gave out billions of dollars in bonuses of the money that they received. Of $10 billion, for example, they gave out $4.9 billion in bonuses to executives of their own companies. So it was all a scam. It was all just another bullshit, elaborate effort where they presented something as one thing, and in reality, it was just a grab for money. You know, it was a transference of wealth from middle class, poor, to the rich, to the owners of those companies and government officials as well. So since that time, we've been artificially propped up. What I like to tell people to do as far as assessing the economy for themselves is just look around you. Set aside whatever reports you may bring up and look around you and think about the people who you interact with, your family members, friends, and assess the job situation first. How many of these people are out of work? How many of these people are underemployed? How many have depleted their life savings in these last 2 years? How many people are just not in a good state, generally speaking, when it comes to finance? And then ask yourself, why is it that, with the answer to that being what it is, that we have record high stock market and Dow Jones currently? And I think the answer to that is that, like I said, with what I just mentioned, people became aware. Those that are in the industry know that this funny money is propping things up. And they know also that as long as that's there, they can continue to make more money gambling and betting on that phony stimulus money. And it's happened now recently again, but even more so than those bank bailouts. And that is all this stimulus money, all these programs that the government has instituted with regard to vaccinations and with regard to basically the reset is what it's typically referred to by those in the know. They're using this opportunity now with this pandemic to reset things and come back in a way that is much different than what we know. Okay? So they're coming back in a way that's not familiar with us, and they're looking to basically change the way of life for Americans in general. The biggest change that's coming is that home ownership as a first is going to be a thing of the past. They're basically creating a situation where it's going to be impossible for most people to own their own homes. They're going to have to rent them from these large companies that are currently buying up blocks of homes in the numbers of thousands. And the reason why you're not going to be able to afford to own your own home, there are many reasons. I'll give you some now. So one of the reasons is that they are coming up with and enacting legislation now already, whereas any new construction, and they're going to apply this to existing construction as well soon, is going to have to be retrofitted and built in such a way where it's going to be green efficient, energy efficient. Okay, that's one of the strategies they're going to use is this global warming thing, and you have by law now to build the homes and not utilize any natural gas or oil. It has to be all electric. You're going to have to at one point retrofit your current homes, take out the gas burners, the hot water heaters, and replace it with electric. So that's going to cost a lot of money. So to address that cost, they're creating lending institutions where they're going to lend you money against your home being collateral. And let's say, for example, I think one report said the average home is going to cost roughly $58,000 based on average square footage in America. It's going to be more than that in my opinion, but let's say it's $100,000. So you need $100,000 to change your home to be fully electric. You don't have it, you borrow money, and they give it to you in the form of a 30-year mortgage collateralized by your home, your existing home. You then make those renovations, and one day down the line, you decide to sell your home. You're going to sell your home, and normally what would happen, or what should happen, is you pay off that $100,000 at closing. Instead, they're making laws where it's going to be illegal to satisfy and to close that loan. That loan's going to have to remain open and transfer onto the next homeowner, which is ridiculous. Makes no sense at all. So basically, everyone right now, many people who are going to need those loans are in a position of bad credit, of tough times in the last few years, and are going to end up not qualifying for a prime interest rate on that money. They're going to pay a very high interest rate. It's going to be fixed at 30 years, and that's going to be transferred to now the next owner, who probably has perfect credit, who may be a cash buyer. It doesn't matter. He's not allowed to close it out. And just for your own reference, one of these loans at anything, let's say even less than 10% interest, which it should be, you're going to end up paying on 30 years, $100,000 of money, you're going to end up paying $1 million plus. That's how much it actually calculates to. So that's one way they're going to really hurt people with regard to home ownership. But in addition, they are actually pumping up the values of the homes now, and eventually that's going to all crash. So people who do have equity in the form of savings in their house are going to end up losing that. That crash is going to coincide with the crash of our current markets, those record high stock markets that I mentioned earlier. And the cause of that is going to be that all this stimulus, all this funny money, all this funny stuff that they've been doing, propping up of markets and artificially manipulating and suppressing, is going to catch up to them. It's going to run out. Eventually, people catch on to this and things crash. And some of the ways that could happen are through the currency, through them basically being so reckless and printing out so many US dollars that what happens is called inflation. The value of those dollars ends up becoming less, so the price of everything across the board goes up, which is currently happening now. We see that happening in every aspect of life. Everything's gotten more expensive, and significantly so. So it's not that those items have become more valuable, it's that the currency that we're utilizing for purchase in this case has gone down in value, requiring more, a higher price. So that's one thing, but in addition, there is oil. Oil is basically what's backing our currency since we went off of the gold standard, and oil is sustained the value of by something called OPEC and international agreements where major oil producing nations agree to sell their oil in dollars. So that could be affected where one of these countries could just exit that and start selling in their own currencies, crashing our dollar also. So there's a lot of ways that this could end badly for us. So in addition to the possibility of the inflation and the issues with currency, we also have to factor in the job market and the current conditions of that market. Aside from job market reports that are created by the government, again, I ask people to just look around yourself and come up with your own assessment. What's currently happening now is we have a much higher percentage of unemployment than is given to us as far as data. But in addition, we have a significant transition that is currently taking place where a lot of people are not aware. And that is the transition from human labor into replacement by robotics. Technology has basically caught up to us now to the point where up to 40% of jobs could be lost by next year, will be lost very soon eventually. That's a guarantee. As an example of that, there's currently now a company that's already active with contracts in place that is driving back and forth cross country, making truck deliveries with a driverless truck, okay, completely driverless. So cars, for example, car services, Ubers, taxis are going to be without person. They're going to be basically machine driven and controlled. As with the trucks, fast food places are already coming up with robots that are going to replace those people at the drive-through windows. And I'm sure many of you have already seen there are kiosks in place where a lot of times you would have dealt with someone in the past in person. You're now dealing with automation. And this is going to really hit us hard. A lot of people are going to lose their jobs as a result, and a lot of people are going to end up unemployed as a result. So these are just a couple of the factors that are currently occurring that are going to basically keep our economy in not only a downturn, but an imminent collapse is what I see. So something else to factor in is that this current pandemic that we're going through is being utilized as an opportunity to further reset things than they would normally be able to get away with. And an example of that is business closings and school closings, lockdowns, and such. I believe that they are going to create another round of fear where they're going to lock us down potentially again. And even if they don't, the restrictions and impositions that they placed on businesses already is wiping people out. Many businesses, small businesses, are getting wiped out, and that's part of the plan. So currently there is at the border issues, and in addition at ports there are issues where deliveries of items are not coming through. Okay, there's a lot of container ships that are backed up miles and miles long off of California waiting to dock just to unload. I'm sure many of you have heard of this. This results in shortages of items in stores that we go look for every day. In addition, it creates shortages of parts that we need to assemble, other machines and such. So if you noticed, when we had the first lockdown, there were certain stores that were allowed to remain open. The big box stores, I call them, retail. And as an example, you have like Home Depot, you have like Best Buy, you have Costco, Walmart, and things like that. Those stores were aware of what was coming ahead of time. They were given preferential treatment and allowed to stay open and make so much money when everyone else was forced to shut down. But now, the way they're about to benefit big time is they were aware that this was going to be taking place, this shortage of goods, and basically the restriction of the shipping of goods, and the prohibitive cost of shipping goods now, because everything's gotten much more expensive to ship. So what they're looking to do basically is knock out the remainder of the businesses that are left standing by utilizing this, in the sense that they have their own manufacturing and their own production of their own goods here. So they don't depend on receiving anything shipped in from China like most others do. They have their own production. And because of that, they're going to be able to continue with a lower cost than those that are going to have to pay that higher shipping, and if they could even get goods to stock their shelves. And eventually, these companies are probably going to lower their costs just to guarantee wiping out everyone else. When they're all wiped out, they're going to raise their costs significantly, and everyone's going to get stuck paying ridiculous high prices. So this is a plan, unfortunately, that's unfolding before us, that's been in motion for many years, and it is total economic destruction of America. We're getting wiped out little by little, and there are so many different aspects of this. I can go on for hours discussing this. One other aspect that many people aren't aware of is with regard to banks and the money you have in banks. Okay, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, there is such a thing called bailouts, where for the first time in historic history in our country, in democracy, the government, became partners with private business and gave them billions of dollars and wouldn't let them go out of business where the economy was dictating that they would. So what's going to happen now is kind of the opposite. It's called a bank bail-in. And what that is of the money that's held in the bank, called deposits, that money is going to be basically confiscated. The majority of it is going to be confiscated at some point in the near future and held. And it's going to be given to the banks. The banks are going to be able to use it however they want, and it's going to be basically a bailout through taxpayer money. And it's going to be theft, institutional theft across the board. A lot of you may not believe this, but again, everything I've said in the past videos that people thought was crazy has now come to fruition. So I tell you to just be open-minded about this thing. So eventually what this is going to lead to is they're looking to get most people conditioned to be at home, to stay indoors, to utilize your home for your own workplace, your own school, your own gym, even your own jail. They've even conditioned people to self-quarantine. So at no point in history has there ever been a time where people who were healthy were told to quarantine. This is the first time ever, okay? And what ultimately will happen is they're going to give you something called universal basic income. They've already introduced that, and they've already started discussion of legislation when it comes to that, where they're going to give everybody an income, let's say $2,000, $3,000 a month, whatever it is. And it sounds good, right? You don't have to work. You'll do something from home. You could have free time. You could be creative. You could become more of yourself. Sounds great. But the catch is that income, that UBI that they give you, is to be spent within every 30-day period. That's the catch. It sounds good otherwise because you could save money, you can get back on your feet, you can buy the things you need, you can put a down payment on a business or a home. That's not going to be possible. It's going to expire. The money's going to have an expiration date of 30 days. If you don't spend it all, it expires. Okay? So in addition to that, there's going to be technology put in place where everyone's going to be connected somehow to a network, whether it be through vaccine passports or ultimately a microchip that is going to be introduced and it's going to be implanted in people's hands, maybe foreheads, down the road a little bit. And those chips are going to contain every piece of data about you, and you're going to use that for everything. It's going to be your driver's license, it's going to be your medical history, it's going to be your vaccine proof, it's going to be everything that they can possibly need of you. But it's also going to be your ability to spend. At that point, we are going to transition to digital currency. They're going to remove cash currency, and that digital currency is then going to be controlled, right? And what I mean by that is you're going to be rated based on your social credit points system is what's going to be in place. They have that in China currently. I'm sure they have it in other places as well, but government's going to be controlling to that extent where if you're doing anything outside of what they tell you to or what they like, you're going to be then restricted in a way that like you can't spend on recreational spending this month. You can only spend on essentials, or they're going to limit your spending. They're going to lower your spending, whatever it is. They're going to lessen your mobility for that month. But it could be something stupid like going on a certain website that they don't want you to do or posting something that they consider unacceptable. And you can see how people are being conditioned to this with all this political correctness and with all this cancel culture stuff. It's nonsense. At the end of the day, adults are adults. We have freedom of speech or we don't. And there's no such thing as dialogue without, disagreement. It doesn't exist. All right? So this is all part of the conditioning. It's all this is. Programming and conditioning goes back decades. And unfortunately, most people are not sophisticated enough to see this when it's happening. But it is happening everywhere, every day, in every form. So I know this sounds bad. It is bad. It's a horrible thing. There is a possibility that maybe this not take place. But I think this great reset effort is happening. It's happening very fast. And the powers in control are not going to let this stop unless they're physically forced to. And the head guy of this whole thing I mentioned before, there are some key players, but the one I'll mention is called Klaus Schwab. He's a German guy. Him, Bezos, Bill Gates, and others, they are the ones controlling this and orchestrating this whole thing. For those of you that wish to, please do look him up. He's the head of the World Economic Forum, and he also has a school, a college basically, like a university that he created decades ago. And if you look into that, I believe it's called the School of Future Leaders, something like that, where you'll see that most of the key players in positions of power now in the American politics and business and governance, they were graduates of his school. Okay, so way back in the early 90s, let's say, most of these guys were students of Klaus Schwab's, and for that reason, obviously, he's in control of them now. And it's not as you think. The illusion that we're in control no longer exists. So there are some ways to protect against this. The main one is to be in control of your own money. If it's actual physical currency, don't have it in the bank. Don't have it in any place or position where you'll have to ask permission or go through multiple processes to get it in case of emergency. Have it accessible. Also, get out of the US dollar and transfer your wealth into a different form of asset. I like gold and silver, great examples of artificial manipulation where those prices have been artificially held down for years. But when that bubble pops and shit hits the fan, the stock market crashes. Commercial real estate is going to be another collapse that's coming soon as well. Gold and silver are going to go up in the opposite direction of the dollar. And I think that might be something you want to look into as well. So I'm giving you guys this information in small bits and pieces, not to overwhelm you, and mostly just so you're aware of what's happening. Don't be fooled by media. Everything you see on the TV, on the news, reported to you in general, you should always just think that, start off with, this is a lie, and go from there. Don't ever assume it's true. It's all bullshit. Everything they're telling you is bullshit. Everything they're telling you is what they want you to believe and is part of a program. All right? Keep that in mind, guys. It's a television program. It's not a television entertainment show. It's a program for a reason. All right? So I hope this helped you guys in some way, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Thanks.